The day I said no to handing over my store to cover my brother's crash and burn startup, the family took a vote. And just like that, I was out. They even smiled while doing it. Democracy, they said. And my little sister? She just stood there like furniture, silent, not even blinking. I gave her a tight smile and said, "All right, then let's vote on something else." A moment later, I set down a pile of paperwork that turned the whole living room into a war zone. I'm Mason. I'm 34. I own a small fix-it and hardware shop at the edge of a nowhere town in western Colorado. It's not much, some battered shelves lined with screws, drills, paint, and parts. But it's mine. Every splintered board and crooked aisle came from my own two hands. I scraped this place into existence 8 years ago with the last of my savings, right after my father told me I'd never pull anything off. Ever since I was a teenager, I've been the guy they called crawling under mom's sink with a wrench at midnight, hauling Riley's beat-up Honda to the shop when it stalled in the middle of nowhere, dragging my cousins out of bar fights that started over a dirty look. I used to think that's what it meant to be family, showing up no matter what, and I did, over and over again, even when no one showed up for me. Then there's my brother, Chase, the family's pride project. Picture-perfect grades, a shiny degree, the kind of guy who got applause just for existing. He could announce he'd learned how to boil water, and my mom would throw a party. Me? I was the wallpaper. Steady, useful, replaceable. That shop of mine. It was the one thing that proved I wasn't invisible. I had built something real. Then last year, that pride got torn in half. Chase had been hyping his startup for years. Some high-tech home security contraption that was supposed to change the game. In reality, it was overpriced junk backed by big promises and no plan. And like all of his bright ideas, it exploded in his face. Investors bailed. Debt piled up. He went under fast. I figured he'd land on his feet somehow. He always did. But then the family came knocking, and they weren't asking for a hammer or a bucket of paint. They wanted me to give up the shop, everything I'd built, just so Chase could reset. I thought I understood favoritism. I grew up in Chase's shadow. But this was different. This was betrayal with a handshake and a smile. Even now, it hits like a gut punch. I used to think blood meant something, that no matter how far you drifted, family pulled you back. I was wrong. Let me back up. Because the lead-up was messy, one of those slow-motion implosions that you can't look away from. It'll make you wonder how many knives are held by people you used to trust. Chase's company tanked about 6 months ago. No surprise there. He'd been running his mouth about this revolutionary security system for years, the kind that'd make people throw money at him. For a while, it seemed to work. Until it didn't. Next thing he knows, he's staring at a $75,000 crater. One evening, just as I was flipping the closed sign at the front of the store, he walks in like he owns the place. Same relaxed smirk, like nothing in the world's wrong. "Mace, my man," he said, leaning against the counter like we were catching up over beer. "Need a little help. Just a quick 20 grand to tide me over. Short term. You know I'll pay it back." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I just looked at him. Deadpan. My store barely makes enough to keep the lights on, and he damn well knows it. "Chase, I'm not your bank," I said. "I've seen your pitch decks. None of them ever pan out. I'm not putting my neck on the chopping block." He shrugged and walked out like it was nothing. Didn't argue, didn't beg. Just smiled and left, which almost made me feel bad. Almost. Then the phone rang later that night. It was Mom. Her voice trembled, like she'd been crying for hours. "Mason, your brother's in trouble. He's falling apart. You're the only one who can help. Please, think about it." That old guilt kicked in. The one I learned young, where Chase won trophies and I got polite claps for not screwing up. But I didn't budge. "I've got bills too, Mom," I said. "He got himself into this. He can get himself out." She sighed, slow, long, and heavy, like I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. Then she hung up. I figured that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I went for my usual coffee at Kelly's Diner. Same spot I've been going since the store opened. I wasn't 2 sips into my mug when old Rick, who's been fixing tractors since I was in diapers, waved me over. "Heard you're sitting on a gold mine and won't lift a finger for your brother," he said, raising a bushy eyebrow. I damn near choked. What are you talking about? Rick leaned in like he was passing along classified info. Chase came through yesterday, said you've got money tucked away and you're just letting him sink. But you refuse to lift a finger for him. Said it's a damn shame. Family turning their backs like that. My grip on the mug tightened. Fury simmered in my gut. Chase was out there spinning lies, casting me as the villain to win sympathy points. I forced a dry laugh and told Rick not to believe a word, but the gossip wheel had already started grinding. By noon, 2 of my regular customers had canceled their orders. No explanation, just curt phone calls. Chase had kicked off a full-blown smear campaign, and I was caught in the blast. Driving home that evening, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, I kept seeing that smug grin of his. For years, he'd used that charm to dodge consequences and pass the buck. Now, he was dragging me down just to keep his own head above water. I couldn't stop replaying my mother's emotional plea. And Rick's words? They echoed in my skull until my temples ached. I'd spent my life trying to prove I was more than just some extra in Chase's story. And here he was, torching my name to save himself. Part of me wanted to call him, confront him, force him to explain. But I already knew how it'd go. Smooth words, empty promises, and that voice he uses when he wants something. Instead, I sat in my truck outside the shop, staring up at the old sign, Mason's Tools, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't about money anymore. Chase would burn me to the ground if it meant one more shot for him, and something told me the family would hand him the matches. Sure enough, a week after his visit, my phone lit up with a call from Dad. No hello. No how are you. Just, get over here, we need to talk. That night, I pulled into the driveway and instantly felt sick. The place was packed. Mom's car, Riley's beat-up Toyota, Uncle Greg's ancient truck. My stomach dropped. Inside, they were all there, huddled around the old plaid couch and sagging chairs like some kind of tribunal. No sign of Chase, naturally. Probably off rehearsing his next big pitch. Dad stood at the fireplace, arms folded. He didn't waste time. Chase is drowning in debt, Mason. We've talked it over. You need to sell your shop. It's not that big a deal. Just like that, my entire livelihood reduced to a small thing. I swallowed back the heat rising in my chest. Mom twisted a dish towel in her hands, just like she always does when she's anxious. You've always helped this family, Mason, she said, her voice almost sweet. Chase is in a dark place. This is what families do. We lift each other up. But there was steel in her tone, like my agreement was already assumed. I finally found my voice. That store isn't a donation box. It's how I survive. Chase made his bed. Why is it on me to fix it? Dad's jaw tightened. Because he has potential. You're steady, sure. But Chase, he could do something real with another chance. That word, steady, landed like a slap. 8 years of sweat, sacrifice, and grit, and I was just the reliable workhorse. Chase was still their prized stallion. Then Riley jumped in, too casual. It's not like you're chained to that store, Mason. You could always start fresh. Like she was suggesting I try a new brand of cereal, not asking me to walk away from everything I built. Uncle Greg chimed in, voice flat. Gotta do what's best for the family's future. Kid, Chase takes priority. Then Mom again, softly but with finality. Just imagine what he could accomplish if we gave him another chance. The tension in that room was suffocating, like the air itself wanted to explode. And I did. So I'm supposed to burn down my life because Chase can't stop screwing up? I've been here for all of you, over and over, and that's still not enough? Dad's voice dropped to a warning tone. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're asking, not begging. Right. Asking, with the subtlety of a loaded gun. I grabbed my coat. I'm not selling, I said again. Mom called after me, but I didn't look back. My chest was heavy as I drove home. Rage, heartbreak, betrayal, they all mixed into one ugly knot. They'd made their choice, and it wasn't me. But I should have known that wasn't the end. A few days later, a text buzzed on my phone. Family meeting. Tonight at 7. Be there. No greeting. No context, no please. I almost ignored it, but some stupid part of me hoped they'd come to their senses. Maybe they'd finally seen what Chase really was. I was wrong. Same scene. Dad at the fireplace. Mom twisting that damn towel. Riley staring at the floor. Uncle Greg tapping his fingers like he had better places to be. Except this time, they were all smiling, too brightly, too rehearsed. Then Dad said sharply, "Mason, you refuse to sell, so we're left with one option. Chase still needs help, so we're taking a family vote. If you won't cooperate, you're not part of this family anymore. Majority rules." My stomach dropped. A vote to cut me out. I let out a bitter laugh. "You're actually serious?" My mother nodded, now eerily calm. "It's only fair. We can't just watch Chase sink." One by one, hands went up. Dad, Mom, Uncle Greg. I turned to Riley, desperate. My sister, who'd crashed on my couch, borrowed my car, cried into my shoulder more times than I could count. "Riley?" I asked, voice cracking. She stared at the rug. "I'm sorry," she said softly, raising her hand. 4-0. My dad gave a cold shrug. "That's it. You're out." The world tilted. 8 years of showing up for them, erased in seconds by a vote. My pulse roared in my ears, but I kept my voice steady. "Fine. Then let's vote on this." I reached into my jacket and pulled out my lease, signed solely under my name, and a typed notice legally severing all financial ties between me and them. "I vote I keep what's mine," I said, letting the papers drop onto the coffee table. Their smugness evaporated. Dad's face turned crimson. "What the hell is this?" he barked. Mom gasped. "Mason, you can't just—" I cut her off. "You made it a numbers game. Now I'm playing by your rules." Uncle Greg lunged for the documents, but I snatched them back. Riley's eyes were wide, like she finally understood just how deep into this mess she'd helped them fall. And then the front door burst open. Chase strolled in like he owned the house, tossing his keys onto the table. "What's all this?" he asked, grinning like he'd walked into his own birthday party. The room exploded. Dad yelled about betrayal. Mom sobbed into her dish towel. Uncle Greg snapped at Chase to read the papers. Chase frowned when he saw them, but tried to play it cool. "Come on, Mason," he said, hands raised. "Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I snapped, voice shaking. "You all just voted me out of the family, and you're going around town spreading lies that I'm closing my store." I held up the lease. "This says I don't owe you anything. You're not touching my shop." Chase's smirk twitched. Dad slammed his fist on the mantel, screaming about how selfish I was. Mom sobbed harder. I grabbed my keys and walked out, didn't look back. I'd seen who they really were. The next day, I opened up as usual, but something felt wrong. The bell above the door stayed silent. Even Mrs. Brooks, who always stopped in for garden supplies, didn't show. By noon, my supplier Walt called. "Mason, are you shutting down or something? Word is you're done. Chase was running his mouth at the tavern last night, telling folks you've already sold the shop." My teeth clenched so tight I thought I might break one. Chase's lies weren't just rumors now. They were draining my business dry. That's when Riley showed up, pale and shaking. "Mason, I need to tell you something," she whispered, voice barely holding steady. "Last month, Chase asked me for a loan. When I said no, he asked for info on your shop, said it was just for investor interest." She hesitated. "But he forged your signature. On a $20,000 loan application, he used your store as collateral." I felt the floor vanish under me. "What?" Her eyes filled. "He didn't send it in, yet. But if he had, you'd be legally tied to it. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how far he'd go." That was it. The last line crossed. He wasn't just lying, he was about to steal everything. I drove straight to his apartment, fists clenched, those forged papers balled up in my hand. He opened the door in a robe, coffee in hand, smiling like it was just another Saturday. "Mason, bro, what's up?" I shoved the documents in his chest. "These? And the crap you've been saying about my shop? You're a fraud." He rolled his eyes. "Relax, I was gonna tell you. We're family. We share burdens, right?" I stared at him, stunned by how casually he brushed it off. "Sharing? You're trying to drown me to keep yourself afloat." He just shrugged and sipped his coffee. It took every ounce of restraint not to slap the mug out of his hand. That night, I locked down my credit, froze everything, and called Walt, begging him not to pull the plug on my supply line. He agreed to give me a few weeks, but the damage was done. Chase's lies had spread. Customers disappeared. People whispered. My reputation was bleeding out. 2 days later, I got a text from Riley. "Meet me at the park. It's worse than we thought. When I got there, she looked even more wrecked than before. Pale, tired, haunted. She dug through her bag and pulled out a thick folder. It's worse, she said. Chase has been dipping into Dad's retirement for years, tens of thousands, maybe more. He always blamed it on bad investments whenever Dad asked questions, but I found texts. Texts where he brags about it, laughing, mocking you, calling you a pushover. Riley held out her phone. I scanned the messages. Mason's an easy mark. Shop'll be mine any day now. My gut twisted. All those years I'd been cleaning up his messes, thinking I was helping family, and behind my back, I was the joke. Riley lowered her head. I voted against you, Mason. I really messed up. But after seeing what he said about you, I couldn't stay quiet. Sunday came. Mom insisted I come for dinner. I didn't go for the food. I went because I needed to watch them face what they'd been protecting. The table was laid out like nothing ever happened. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, buttered rolls. Dad carved meat in silence. Uncle Greg picked at the label on his beer. Riley kept her eyes on her plate. And Chase, of course, was late again. I couldn't wait any longer. I stood, pulled out the folder Riley had given me, and laid it on the table. He's been stealing from Dad, for years. It wasn't just a loan he wanted. He's been draining you all dry. Mom's fork froze midair. Dad snatched the folder, flipping through the documents, hands trembling. Uncle Greg went stiff. That's when Chase strolled in, sniffing the air. Damn, smells good. What's the occasion? He paused when he saw the folder. What's this? Mom's voice shook. Mason says you've been stealing from us. Chase laughed. He's twisting things. You know how he gets. But Riley was already on her feet. I saw the messages, Chase. I know everything. Dad turned red as he read line after line, his hands beginning to shake. Mom was crying now, silently. Chase, how could you? I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there and let them see him. Finally, for who he really was. After a pause, I spoke. You voted me out so he could keep bleeding you dry. Dad set the papers down, his voice weak. Family doesn't air dirty laundry like this, Mason. You crossed a line. I locked eyes with him. You crossed it first, the day you voted me out. Chase looked cornered. It's not what it looks like. You're all overreacting. But Uncle Greg grabbed his arm. Sit down, he snapped. I turned back to Dad. He's got leverage on you, doesn't he? That's why you've been covering for him. Dad looked like he'd swallowed broken glass. He said nothing. Chase, smug again, looked between us. Go ahead, Dad. Tell him, Dad whispered. I had some gambling debts years ago. Chase bailed me out, kept it quiet, kept the police out of it. I owed him. Mom gasped. Paul, how could you keep that from us? He didn't answer. He just looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Chase leaned back like he'd won again. I pulled out one more paper, a legal notice. This is done. You're all officially cut off. No more money. No more pretending we're one big happy family. You don't get to bleed me dry anymore. Chase sneered. You don't have the guts. I stared him down. Try me. Dad stood, voice cracking. You'd really shut us out forever? You shut me out first, I said. Chase lunged toward me, fists balled, grabbing my shirt. You think you're better than us? I shoved him hard. No, I just refuse to let you destroy me. Riley stepped in, crying. Stop, please. I held up my hand to her. I'm casting my vote. I'm done. You can keep your majority. Dad opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Mom whispered, we're still family. It didn't even sound convincing. I grabbed my jacket, turned for the door. You'll regret this, Chase shouted behind me. But I didn't look back. They knew the truth now. And that was enough. 1 month later, I'm back to routine. Mornings in the shop, sweeping sawdust, fixing what's broken. Chase disappeared the day after I dropped the truth on the table. Word is he's in Detroit, using a new name, running the same old cons. Dad hasn't said a word since. He's stuck with his guilt now. The shame of how he let his son blackmail him into silence. Mom leaves voicemails about forgiveness, healing, family. I don't listen. Riley is different. She's taking legal action, trying to recover what was stolen from Dad's retirement. I've been quietly feeding her every scrap of proof I can find. Business is crawling back, slowly. The damage Chase did with his rumors about my shop being closed ran deep. But loyal folks like Rick still show up. One sale at a time, I'm rebuilding. Some nights I still wake up in a sweat. Fists clenched, I replay how my own family voted me off. But the sting fades, bit by bit. The shop is quiet now, free of their constant demands. And in that silence, there's a strange sense of relief. I've learned one hard truth. You don't need anyone's permission to save yourself from a ship that's already sinking. You just need the courage to jump. And I did. I'm still standing, sweeping my shop floor, fighting for the life I built. And that's enough. Thank you for tuning in. If this story resonates with you, feel free to share your own experiences below. Even a small gesture like clicking like can mean the world. I look forward to sharing more stories next time.